Connor, we found out that Big Brother is watching us and our financials. Can you please, anything that has to do with my money and them watching, I don't like it.
Yeah, so let's get right into this. Have any of you ever sent a financial transaction that had a right-leaning word in it? Have you ever shopped at a sporting goods store?
Yeah.
Have you ever bought fishing equipment?
Absolutely.
Have you ever purchased a Bible?
Of course.
If so, ever since January 6th, the United States government has been watching you.
Wow.
Now, this report first came to us, let me consult my notes here, from Jim Jordan. We're all familiar with Congressman Jordan on the House Judiciary Committee. He first posted this on Twitter a few months ago, early January, I believe it was, where he was breaking down in his style of doing, where he puts out the documents that they obtain, that the government has been flagging financial transactions. Excuse me. Particularly, it is the Department of Treasury with their Financial Crimes Division that they became concerned about domestic extremists in the wake of January 6th. FinCEN is what it's called, where they basically put out to most major banking institutions, hey, if you come across anything like a Zelle payment, a Venmo, a transaction between two different accounts, if it says Trump, if it says Antifa, Pelosi, if it says Kamala Harris, basically anything that a right-winger might be mentioning to friends in transactions.
Horns.
Yeah,
For the outfit.
they didn't flag buffalo hats.
Okay.
So you're telling me if I bought a Make America Great hat, which, by the way, I would never wear because I look like a dork in a big if I did. I'm strictly a Hamburg guy. But if I did, you're telling me they were tracking my bank information?
Yeah.
And this is legally being done.
Legally dubious in the same ways.
I hate that.
I reported a story a few months ago about how they were also monitoring, cell phone records and stuff like that. Same thing, where the government can't do it, but the government can nudge a private company to do it and then tell them what they come across. Same way where if there are suspicious people who are making phone calls, they nudge the phone company like, hey, it would be pretty helpful if you told us who they were calling, right?
Or you mean, not to cut you off, Brady, or you mean the government telling the FBI, sending 81 agents to go to Twitter and say, hey, listen, don't let anything negative happen about that old bastard or his son. That's it. That's ridiculous.
So say so they're coming after my Venmo. So I say I sell a lot of art and stuff like that. Say I paint a picture of Trump, they'll come after me for that.
Well, it's not just about what you're selling.
It's the keywords, I think.
It's the keywords. Where if you do a portrait of Trump,
which
you
I
sell
have.
it to your buddy for however much.
$5,000.
And then he pays you via Venmo and says, or Zelle.
What's this for?
Zelle is the most specific one. And in the notes, he says, thanks for the Trump painting.
Oh, damn.
The word Trump would have appeared on this radar.
So do I lose my account, or how does that work?
Well, they're just watching you. Now they're watching you.
They're just watching. So I wrote an article on this when Jordan first posted it, but the Treasury Department has since confirmed it officially. They admitted, yes, we were doing it. According to an open letter co-written by the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of Federal Government, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, aka FinCEN, quote, distributed materials to financial institutions that, among other things, outline the typologies of various persons of interest and provide financial institutions with suggested search terms and merchant category codes for identifying transactions on behalf of federal law enforcement.
See, what I like, they act like this is just to kind of protect us from people that did January 6th, but they're not tracking Antifa or people who bought bricks or who bought a stolen iPhone. BLM.
Yep,
they're not tracking that. This is a one-sided lawfare situation.
It's bullshit is what it is.
And Raj, you think it's just, obviously, we're not stupid what it is. Is it just the going after the right situation, like what he's basically saying? They don't give a shit about anything that the left is doing?
Well, it's kind of ironic that this comes to us on a day, we talk about this on a day, in which it is revealed that long before the Steele dossier, the Central Intelligence Agency was going to British intelligence to ask them to spy on 26 Americans who were supporters or friends or advisors of Donald Trump, to give the Central Intelligence Agency deniability. Oh, it wasn't us. No, we didn't do it. We had them do it and give us the fruits. John Brennan cooked this up. It's illegal. But to date, he has paid no penalty for it. A couple of thoughts. I mean, first of all, it's the same mentality we're talking about. The government spying on private citizens without any probable cause. Right. It's not that they were monitoring people because they had some evidence that they were involved in a crime. You're being watched simply because you support or you're in touch with Donald Trump.
Right.
It's absolutely outrageous. But my guess is it's still going on even today.
Let me ask you, Roger, too, in terms of all that, where do these tactics come from? Because obviously this has been happening with us in terms of our freedom. I feel like didn't the Nazis kind of start this whole operation in terms of spying on you, stuff you say, stuff you leak out? And then isn't that slowly what is happening to us in terms of our freedoms?
Except for there's so much more in terms of technological advances now. So nobody's wiretapped anymore. They don't have to go plant a bug in your car or your home. They can all do it, by projection.
We bugged ourselves. We bring our phones with us everywhere.
They said that I forgot what the name, and I read this somewhere, that the CIA had a special name for Mark Zuckerberg. Like they loved him.
Oh, really?
Because he made it, by the way, your entire life, they've been trying, right? They want to know where you're going. They bug this, they tap this. Mark Zuckerberg made it cool to where you're willingly doing it. And if you don't do it, people are like, hey, you went on vacation? We didn't see any pictures of you, your kid. Now, as of right now, just from my phone, from my social media, you know where I go, you know who I talk to, you know where I eat. And they have predictive programming where they can tell you where you're going to be. So if they're looking for you, they go, oh, well, on Thursdays, he normally gets coffee here and talks to such and such, and he winds up at this intersection at this time. It's insane.
That's scary.
The Biden administration's always looked for ways to divide us on lines that we would already decide, like getting the vaccine, okay? So those that didn't want to get it, they immediately alienated those people. Now they're doing it with just things you're buying. And then women, if moms are speaking at those school board meetings and they say things against it, they've been put on these lists as well as domestic terrorists because they don't want certain books being taught to children.
It's awful.
But the way they flagged these things also shows how little they think of the people they're monitoring. That they created this caricature of what the average right-winger is.
Right.
Because it wasn't just, someone in a Venmo saying, here's $5,000 for planting those bombs or whatever. Like, it wasn't extremist stuff like that. They flagged, oh, did you buy a bus ticket around January 6th near somewhere
anywhere
in DC?
near it?
Anywhere near it. And if you had no reason to be there, we think you might have gone to January.
But you said like fishing poles and hunting goods.
Yeah. Anything.
How about a Bible? You bought a Bible.
Yeah.
Wow. Must be dangerous.
Holy shit. You like God?
The quote from Jordan was, transportation charges, including bus tickets and plane travel for areas with no apparent purpose, or, quote, the purchase of books, including religious texts, and subscriptions to other media containing extremist views. So, if you ordered a Bible on Amazon around January 6th, there was, maybe a reason to think that you were involved.
Probable cause. So they're just using our behavioral patterns to track who's on their side and who's probably an enemy.
But also, whose definition of extremist track? So if you subscribe to the Breitbart News or Revolver News, that.
Yeah.
But if you subscribe to any left, if you subscribe to the Huffington Post, one of the most ridiculous ones, that's perfectly all right. That's mainstream.
So, Roger, when you brought up, not to cut you off, when you brought up the CIA, Obama paying all these officials, I think he went up to 26 people. Were you one of these people?
I was actually on my way here. I was listening to Dan Bongino, who read the list. Now, this is the first time I've heard the list. I knew I was on the list because on January 20th, 2017, that's the day of the inauguration, that morning, the New York Times has a front page story above the fold, which says that 3 Trump associates, Carter Page, Paul Manafort, and myself, were under surveillance regarding our contacts with Russia. Well, I didn't think too much of it. You know why? Because I had no contacts with Russia.
Right.
But then later, when they charged me in this fabricated charge of lying to Congress under oath in my voluntary testimony regarding Russian collusion that we now know never actually happened, the government adamantly denied that they'd ever surveilled me. The New York Times will not retract the story. They insist they have 3 solid sources. We now know the New York Times was right. By the way, that story, when it goes online, they soften the headline, but the story's still there.
Yeah, they go back and edit it. They stealth edit those headlines. Did you feel like you're under surveillance? Did you see a van parked outside?
To me, it just seemed very odd because I knew I didn't know any Russians. I'd never been to Russia. Wasn't talking to any Russians. So it's an absurdity.
Was it digital?
They don't really say. They just say, actually, they use in the headline, The original headline, they said we were wiretapped. Well, that's an antiquated term. They don't wiretap anymore, but that's the word the New York Times used in their headline.
Well, and Raj, in the aftermath, it must feel, because I've obviously never had it happen to me. I mean, you know what I'm about. You know what I talk about. You see my platform. I'm reaching millions of people. How does it make you feel once you realize, like, oh shit, illegally watching me for something that I didn't do and I have nothing a part of, but they're watching me to try to set me up?
It's a creepy feeling. On the other hand, today I operate on the basis that everything I say, everything I write, everything I text, everything I do, it's probably all being monitored somewhere. So I still haven't done anything wrong. So that's the irony.
Let me ask you, do you think it's just if you're doing something illegal, or are they also gathering stuff that might be embarrassing to you to then, blackmail you later?
Certainly a possibility. I mean, first of all, they're supposed to have probable cause. They need to have some piece of evidence that would indicate that you're involved in some criminal activity. Right. So when the Mueller prosecutors went to multiple federal judges, they said, Your Honor, we have reason to believe that Stone is guilty of conspiracy against the United States, money laundering millions, counterfeiting Russian money, unauthorized access to a government computer, aiding and abetting a criminal conspiracy. Now, when they got my more than 1 million emails, because I'm one of these guys who never deletes anything.
Smart.
And all my text messages. You know what they found? Nothing. That's what they found. Nothing.
I love it. And they still keep on your ass, Raj, because they're like, just as long as they're making you look like crap in front of the public eye.
I mean, I guess here's the point. So, yes, I have a very limited exchange on Twitter direct messages between myself and the persona of someone who calls himself Guccifer 2.0.
Okay.
This takes place 3 months after WikiLeaks has already published all the Clinton DNC material. So just on the basis of the timeline, impossible for you to be involved in a conspiracy for something that has already happened, right?
Yeah.
And it's innocuous. I myself publish it. I make it public. I turn it over to the House Intelligence Committee. Yet, to this day, you will see accusations by Robert Mueller and others. Stone was in touch with the Russian intelligence services. Well, first of all, I don't even concede that Guccifer 2 was, in fact, Russian intelligence, just because John Brennan says he was. I've written
sleazeball.
4 longer articles that would indicate that's not the case. But secondarily, even if it were true, the exchange is limited and it's innocuous. There's no evidence of collusion or collaboration or any other crime.
Right.
But you go to Twitter right now, you'll find a bunch of people say, oh, Stone was in direct touch with Russian intelligence. It's bull.
So there's no emails of you speaking Russian at all.
No, I'm half Hungarian and I don't speak Hungarian.
Look at that. What were you going to say, Connor?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to bring it to a close with the last point, because in addition to all that, they were also just monitoring anyone who shopped at Cabela's or Bass Pro or went to a firearm store.
Screwed.
Yeah, and I took that very personally, because growing up middle class, going to Bass Pro was like a vacation. It was a free theme park to go walk around and look at the fish tank and everything.
But
I guess that makes me a right-wing extremist.
But,
shop there.
But look at that. Look at the genre that they're going after. The white guy. Anti-white rhetoric, that's all you keep hearing, is the white, the hunter, the fisherman, the people that are trying to live off the land.
Right.
They have to make us look, the average Joe, like the enemy, Roger. If you think about it. And we'll get into we'll touch on the January 6th thing and what that was about and what they're going to be using it for future.
And this is what they pioneered with the entire Trump campaign. They went after you guys, and then they directed it against the rest of us right afterwards. It's like Trump always said, they're not after me, they're after you, I'm just in the way. Once they got away with it, they decided, hey, why not do it to everybody?
My question for Roger is, was this going on, does this happen when a Republican is in office, or is this just strategically a leftist slimeball move that they keep doing?
I don't think this ever went on under Republicans. Now, people say, oh, Watergate. Let's look at Watergate for a moment. So a bunch of misguided private citizens come up with the idea of breaking into the Watergate. They bungle the job from the beginning. The wiretaps they place never actually record anybody. But the Central Intelligence Agency, we now know based on declassified documents, gets wind of this, infiltrates the burglar team. 4 of the 8 Watergate burglars are still on the CIA payroll, and they're reporting everything to their handlers.
Wow.
Now, compare that with this, which is essentially Barack Obama and Joe Biden using the full authority of the federal government and the extraordinary capability of the intelligence agencies, utilizing what they know is fabricated evidence as their rationale to mount an effort to remove a duly elected president. That's an abuse of power. The other thing is a political charade. It's a comedy of errors. It's stupid. Why, when you're leading in 49 states and you're about to have the greatest landslide in American political history, why would you want to wiretap the Democratic National Committee? Plus, if you know anything about politics, there's nothing going on at the DNC worth knowing. It would be over at George McGovern's headquarters. So, no, the answer is no. I don't think we've ever seen this kind of surveillance state. It really grows under Obama, and it is most likely extremely active today.
And thanks, Roger. And I definitely want to say you brought up Brennan. If you just look at a photo of Brennan, one of just the most
demon,
ugliest, like angriest guys who, mind you, used to be the head of the CIA. Guess where he talks for MSNBC.
Well, let's be clear about a couple things. First of all, he's a self-admitted former communist.
Yes.
He admits that he voted for the Communist Party, candidate for president. He was the RITA CIA station chief who gave the visas to 4 of the hijackers who came here and attacked the country on 9/11.
Weird.
Last weekend on my WABC New York radio show, I had the FBI former counterterrorism expert John Guandolo, who says and has been supported and claims that Brennan converted to radical Islam in a ceremony when he was the CIA station chief in RITA.
That's a hat trick.
And one of the other retired station chiefs has backed him in this claim. So John Brennan is a bad actor who felt that he could break the law with impunity. By the way, he also lied to a Senate committee about spying on the committee when they were investigating his use of illegal torture. But of course, he was not charged.
Never.
Of course.
He is the quintessential bad actor. Prior to my trial, when I posted a meme online of him in a wanted poster for treason, the judge threatened to throw me in jail for that.